In the age of fan service, meaning big money for movie studios, there's very much a feeling that something we're doing for effect has either already been done or will be at the earliest possible moment, if there's some call from potential audiences to see something, whether that's an adaptation of a hugely successful book series, a sequel, a payoff to something previously seeded, or the meeting of two characters or actors on screen for the first time. The conversation about it happening will already have happened in a boardroom somewhere. It wasn't always this way, though, and it isn't always now. And sometimes we were forced to actually wait for things. Unfortunately, though, the wait isn't always worth it, as in the case of Gwen Stacy's death or Batman fighting Superman. But there are movie moments from not even so long ago that prove that filmmakers can deliver, even when their big moments have been hyped for years. So here are 8 moments we waited for years. Number 8, Voldemort returns. Harry Potter and the Goblet on Fire. Obviously, Lord Voldemort's first appearance in the Harry Potter movie franchise comes at the end of the first movie, when it turns out he's living on the back of Professor Quirrell's head. But fans of the books and the films had to wait another 4 years before we got to see the real deal. And for all the changes Mike Newell chose to make to the original Triwizard Tournament from the books, the climax of the 4th Potter film delivered on that much-hyped moment wonderfully. Set against the wonderful atmospherics of the graveyard, Ralph Fiennes' supernatural serpentine performance and striking, creepy look were everything fans could ever wanted. He was a colossus, almost viscerally affecting and haunting in a way that's usually reserved for horror movie villains, and the almost flippant command to murder Cedric Diggory is like a grim crown on his reveal. Number 7. De Niro meets Pacino. Heat. It would be somewhat unfair to say Heat was marketed only on the first ever meeting of Robert De Niro and Al Pacino face-to-face in a movie, but it certainly played a major part of the conversation. And not only that, but director Michael Mann played up to it, delaying the reveal until late into the movie. For decades, a pair of acting titans had been the ultimate dream team that never was, albeit aside from sharing a movie, but no scenes in The Godfather Part 2. It was such a hype moment that it could barely hope to live up to expectations. But it managed it, thanks to how Mann pushes the mythology of each man within the movie, and then lets their screen chemistry deal with the rest. More than a decade later, John Avnet tried to recapture the magic with Righteous Kill, which was marketed pretty much solely on the meeting of De Niro and Pacino again. Sadly, unlike Heat, it was garbage, and the cynical marketing ploy was revealed as little more than a lie. Dory's heartbreaking backstory in Finding Dory. Whenever someone chooses to make a prequel, or something focusing as specifically on one element of a backstory, as films like Finding Dory, Rogue One, A Star Wars Story, or Dawn of the Planet of the Apes, they're lumbered with the problem of demystification. While all 3 of those examples managed to navigate the issues very well, others, like the Solo prequel, crumbled when it turned out that the showing was a lot less interesting than teasing. There were some concerns that might be the case for a Finding Nemo sequel based on Dory's story, because most of her casual reveal of the loss of her family in the first movie was as heartbreaking as it was funny. But fans, including star Ellen DeGeneres, who campaigned for a sequel for years, had wanted a sequel to the original since its release, so there was no derailing the hype. For all the potential pitfalls, discovering how Dory lost her family was one of the most emotionally resonant Pixar moments ever, and the whole film remains one of Pixar's most well-rounded sequels. Number 5. Cap vs. Iron Man. Captain America: Civil War. Way back in the Avengers, Nick Fury revived his abandoned Avengers initiative with a ragtag group, including a known wild card already rejected once, an unstable monster who had been deemed enough of an issue to recruit his murderous, even more unstable enemy previously, and the alien who inspired S.H.I.E.L.D. to start developing Nazi superweapons in the first place. Great foundation for a successful team. Partly because of the mix of weirdos and egos, there were immediate clashes, with Captain America and Tony Stark in particular seemingly content with their swinging their penises about to see who's best and biggest, or more efficient or something. Anyone even half aware of the comics would know this was all a big nod towards a Civil War story event that saw the heroes at war over superhero registration. Even before Civil War was announced as a movie, or version of it at least. The tensions between the two were played upon repeatedly, so we knew something was coming. And then it all burst out into an emotionally charged ballet of violence at the end of the third Captain America movie, as Stark learned the truth about his parents' murder. This was way more than a clash of egos, way more than seeing which hero was better. It was deeply, sadly personal, and it delivered in a way a pure adaptation of the comic would have failed to do. Number 4. Darth Vader Weapon, Rogue One. The reshoots on the first Star Wars spin-off movie ought to be held up by film professors as a perfect example of why you shouldn't be afraid of meddling. They transformed Gareth Edwards' vision for the movie, and the result, even without a direct comparison possible, was brilliant. One of the more contentious additions to the film was a Darth Vader scene right at the end that saw him finally put aside his emo pining and inner turmoil from the prequels and give us some indication of why he was so feared by the time he turned up in A New Hope. Some might not like it, but the moment delivers on everything it needed to, and it rescued Vader from some of the most distasteful moments of the sad Anakin era. Seeing him cut a swath through enemies in a brutally choreographed, stylishly designed sequence was a big moment for OG Vader fans. And while it isn't exactly the most subtle, it was worth waiting for. This was more about reclamation. After all, and to that end, it couldn't have been more successful. Number 3. Woody gives Andy up. Toy Story 3's ending was very good, and had the series ended there with the toys looking forward to a new life with Bonnie, then it would have been absolutely satisfying. Sure, there would have been suggestions that they were just going to be hurt again, and probably again, and maybe even again, but the promise of hope was enough. But then Pixar announced a fourth movie in 2014, after a couple of years of rumors, which they denied publicly as late as 2013, and the ending was to be undone. Surely the only way for that to work would be for them to deliver a more definitive ending for the series. Main character, Woody? Speculation that he would be kicked off, but in the end, Toy Story 4 explored more about Woody's relationship with Andy, hinting more at his tragic backstory of decades of redundancy before he finally met his first and only owner, and it was wonderful. Not only did the film completely justify its existence, it also delivered the true satisfying ending we didn't even know we were missing. Number 2. Thanos does it himself. Avengers Infinity War. He might not have been played by the same actor, and his motives might have been a little less obviously set, but Thanos obviously originally appeared way back in 2012 in the first stinger of the Avengers. That brief moment mapped out exactly where the MCU was headed, even with some diversion thrown in along the way, and who was coming. It actually took Marvel longer to set exactly where they were headed in terms of the specifics, but we could bank on the fact that Thanos would stop hiding behind the plans of minions and subordinates eventually and come to do it himself. He even said it himself at the end of Avengers Age of Ultron. After so long, he could have crumpled under the weight of hype, but instead, Thanos blossomed, making him an instant mark by killing both Heimdall and Loki after disseminating Xander off screen. He arrived as a fully formed badass whose instant mythology was added by the complexity of his ideas on morality and his tragic backstory. Putting aside all of what came next, those first scenes where he bats Hulk away, incapacitates Thor as if he's not an actual Superman god, and kills off two supremely powerful characters, really delivered. Number 1. The Battle of Helm's Deep. Up until Peter Jackson turned his hand to making them, the Lord of the Rings books were arguably the most eminently adaptable stories ever that hadn't made it to the big screen. Well, at least not as a live-action movie, because Ralph Bakshi had made an animated version in 1978. While that has its charms, it's not exactly definitive, so Jackson's labor of love was more than welcome. By the time the film came to the big screen, Jackson had been considering how to make it for a fair old while. Far longer than the 6 years it took for him to decide to take it on as a production in 1995. The reality of why he was first to ever do it is that it simply hadn't been possible, and it was only when Jurassic Park brought CG forward so rapidly. It wasn't that there weren't millions of Lord of the Rings fans who ached to see their favorite story retold visually, because that was demonstrably untrue. And because of the unspoken, impossible history of the Lord of the Rings potential, It was inevitable that there'd be greater hype heaped on the grand moments that wouldn't have been possible before the late 1990s. Seeing orcs and trolls and balrogs was incredible, but seeing thousands of them all squished together in one place for pitched battle was always that added bit more special. So, when the Battle of Helm's Deep kicked off, it came with decades of weight behind it. And the fact that it was so stunning, so spectacular, and so much of a multi-pronged sensory experience is still incredibly impressive even now. Which other moments belong on the list? Share your favorites in the comments section below.